Greetings fellow traders, this is Max and welcome to my Sunday market analysis, where I'm gonna analyze the market and share with you my top trades for the upcoming week. Last week was a really wild week in the markets. As you can see, we have negative 1.2% on this pair, another negative 1% and even plus 1%, plus 0.9%. So there have been some really crazy moves. And last week I did not catch any of my trades that I planned, but we will have a look at those pairs later on in the video and see how those pairs from last week have performed. But of course, I still have 3 pairs for the coming week with really interesting trade setups that I'm excited to share with you now, and maybe this week will be a week of a new trade. So without further ado, let's start here with the pair GBPCAD. And for GBPCAD, I'm looking for a potential long position here. So you can see the price has been ranging on the weekly chart a bit around the 1.84 round psychological level and an area of interest. And now we actually broke through a new area of interest and another round psychological level, the 1.86 round psychological level. So the weekly chart has had a green push to the upside. Now recently we had a red weekly candlestick. And now on the daily chart, I'm pretty much looking for another small retest, or even on a lower time frame, another liquidity grab or retest of this 1.86 round psychological level. Then I want to see still some bullish buying power coming into the market, giving me a shifter structure, and that will be my entry signal to open a long position on GBPCAD. So overall, we are still in an uptrend, which is why I expect price to climb a little higher. But it's the beginning of the new month, so it's important to look at the monthly chart as well. And what we can see here is that the recent monthly candlestick has closed with a nice wick to the upside, a really good green body, and it even closed above the round psychological level and an area of interest. So what I'm expecting price to do now is, while it's forming the new monthly candlestick, I'm expecting it to have a small wick down on the new candlestick forming here. That might be at the same time the retest of this area where I hopefully get the chance to open my long position. And when it's doing that, I really hope that the new month will be a wick fill and I can profit off of that push and continuation to the upside. So that's the plan for GBPCAD. Of course, what you can see here, this could also be some potential left shoulder ahead, and now it might be forming a right shoulder, indicating a price reversal and a correction to the downside. But right now we do not know. It's still bouncing off of the 50 EMA here. We are above the round psychological level and the area of interest. So those indicators are looking really good. And now it's just time to wait and see if it's giving me the shifter structure, entry signal, and the liquidity sweep below the level. Now the next pair on my list is GBPNZD, and on GBPNZD I am looking for a long position as well. If you remember, GBPNZD has also been on my list from last week, and I'm still waiting for it to come down into the area, and it actually has reached the 2.27 round psychological level. So overall on the weekly chart, we are still in a nice uptrend, and we are just having a bigger correction here to a recent area of interest and round psychological level. And on the lower time frame, it looks like we are getting the rejection of this area here. So we have a daily candlestick closing quite neutrally and even a liquidity sweep. Now what I want to see is, in order for me to open a long position, I would like to either see a second daily liquidity sweep here, maybe a little lower, and then indicating some bullish buying pressure. However, GBPNZD sometimes tends to only do it once, or at least the first signal is already quite significant, because what you can see here is we had a break, then there has been a small liquidity sweep, and it immediately continued to the upside. So maybe this will happen here as well. But right now it is looking really good. I'm waiting for a higher low now, which then might form the indicated shoulder of, or the inverse shoulder of this inverse head and shoulders pattern, or potential inverse head and shoulders pattern, which you know is a reversal pattern and a bullish sign in a downtrend. And we have the potential left shoulder here, then this is going to be the head, and then I'm waiting for the higher low right shoulder to open a long position on GBPNZD and profit off of a correction or continuation to the upside. Now it's again important to look at the monthly chart, and on a monthly chart you can see we are creating new highs, and this is going to be the bigger correction to the downside, or the retest of this area here. So we have a push, a correction, a push, and this is probably going to be the correction, and then hopefully the new monthly candlestick, or maybe it's only going to be in 2 months, we don't know yet. Hopefully it will be green again and a push and continuation to the upside. Maybe this week is actually going to be quite neutral. that could absolutely be, then the entry is not going to be there in the coming week, but maybe the week after. But it's important for me to be patient now and wait for my clean entry signal. So that's the plan for GBPNZD. Let's have a look at the next and already final pair for the main list, which is CADCHF. On CADCHF, I have to say, I was thinking quite often about it whether I want to add this to the list, because if you remember, CADCHF has mainly been on my list with potential long positions, and right now I'm actually looking for a short position here. And the reason is that we are having a round psychological level here, the 0.57 round psychological level. The price has respected this level quite some times here. Unfortunately, it broke through it many times again, and it hasn't really been some consistent resistance, which is why I will be really careful with this potential trade. But right now we broke through this area again. We've gapped a little here, so I'm expecting for price to fill the gap first. That will be the retest and liquidity sweep of the 0.57 round psychological level, an area of interest. Then I want to see the bearish price action here and a really clear rejection of this area. And then on the lower time frame, I want to see the bearish price action that's giving me the entry signal, a shift of structure or an evening star formation or something like that to open the short position here on CADCHF and profit off of a potential continuation to the downside, maybe with the first profit target being the lowest low here. I'm not sure if it has the potential to break this low. It could be, since we're still in a really big downtrend, and even the recent monthly candlestick has closed red and below this zone here, which is indicating for me there is going to be, or there's still a lot of bearish power and pressure in the market. When the new monthly candlestick is forming, then there's going to be the wick up, which will be the retest at the same time. So those indicators are pretty much adding up, and there's some additional confluence at the same time. So break and retest trade for CADCHF. It's important to be patient again. Maybe by midweek there will be the entry, but I do not expect the entry to be here earlier. And that's already it with the main pairs for this week's Sunday market analysis. Now let's have a look at some pairs from last week and see how they have performed. We'll start here with the pair AUD USD. On AUD USD, if you remember, I closed a long position from entering the position around this level here and closing it pretty much at this point, and it even continued to the upside, and I'm still waiting for it to come down into the zone. I have my alarm set here and I'm waiting for the retest of this pair. The retest has not happened last week, so it might take a couple days, but I believe it will take at least the next 5 days of the coming week, which I decided not to put it on this week's list primarily, but I can imagine that the entry is going to be in 2 weeks from now. If you can see, or if you look at the weekly chart here, still a little gap here to be filled, and maybe the coming week will close red, and then in the week after there's going to be the price formation and shifter structure of this correction to open the long position here and profit off of the continuation on AUD USD. So pretty much still waiting for the correction. Same thing has happened on NZD USD. I'm still waiting for the correction. We had the breakout out of this really nice and clean resistance zone and round psychological level, the 0.585 round psychological level, and I'm still waiting for price to come down back into the zone, test it again, retest it, maybe bounce off of the 50 EMA here, liquidity sweep, and then shift the structure to open a long position on NZD USD. So still requiring some patience. It seems to be experiencing some resistance up here, but right now I'm still waiting for it to have the correction and come down into the area again. Now let's have a look at the last pair, which is USD CHF. And on USD CHF, the plan was to wait for a retest of the 0.79 round psychological level and area of interest, which has been support and will now turn into resistance, hopefully. But as you can see, it will still take some days and some time, which is why I decided not to put it on this week's list either. I believe it will take at least 5 days to come back into the area here and then show me the price action that's indicating some bearish power around this area, so some selling power. As you can see here, it took several green days and quite some red days now and then to actually have those corrections, which is why I'm expecting price to take a couple days, and probably next week it will be on my list again, depending on how this coming week is going to close. Even on the monthly chart, we can see we've closed as a big red candle, so I'm expecting some kind of retest still, even though we closed really big and red here. As I said, important to be patient, which is why it's not on this week's list, because it will probably take some time and some days to climb up back into this area. And that's already it with this week's Sunday market analysis. Of course, I have looked at the other pairs too. I've set price alarms, and if any of those alarms is getting triggered, I will have a look at the respective pair again. Right now, there hasn't been any additional new and good trade for the coming week. But if you want to get notified whenever there's a new trading opportunity coming up that I'm interested in, you can just join my free Telegram channel. I will put the link to it into the video description. In this channel, I share regular trade updates on my running trades and share whenever I open or close a position. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below and I will try to answer your questions. Thank you for watching. I wish you a successful trading week. Remember to manage your risk properly and see you next Sunday.